Daunting road trip? Nah. How about 2 quality wins for the Minnesota Wild to get it started? We recap dominant efforts against Carolina and Washington, talk record books with Kirill Kaprizov, and look ahead to the rest of the week today on Locked On Wild.
You're Locked On Wild, your daily podcast on the Minnesota Wild. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Locked On Wild, your daily Minnesota Wild podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. And just as a reminder, Locked On Wild is available wherever you listen to podcasts and is available free of charge. On today's episode of Locked On Wild, we recap a dominant weekend for the Minnesota Wild. We talk Kirill Kaprizov standing alone at the top of the Minnesota Wild points leaderboard and look ahead to a couple of huge playoff implication showdowns with Central Division foes later this week. My name is Seth Topal, host of Locked On Wild, veteran captain of Locked On Wild with well over a decade's worth of experience covering your favorite Minnesota sports teams through their highs and their lows, and now here fully with the Minnesota Wild. And joined by our usual Monday co-host, Alex Micheletti, for a Victory Micheletti Monday. Should note, today's episode brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. Alex, we looked at this road trip with concern because it's a toughie.
Yeah.
But we're 2 games into it. The Wild just throttled the Washington Capitals after beating the Carolina Hurricanes. And so halfway through this trip, things are looking pretty good for the Minnesota Wild.
Yeah, I remember us talking last Sunday. We were pretty worried about the amount of just really good teams on this road trip, and so far so good. I mean, both games were dominant. I mean, yeah, tonight clear Washington at the end there just kind of raised up the white flag, but to beat Carolina, that opened some eyes too. And Marc-Andre Fleury was absolutely just an absolute stud in the net. Some of the saves he made, especially in that second period when Carolina was making a big push, and that one save that stood out was the Marty Nikis save where he slid across and just robbed him. And I also tweeted that Vincent Trocheck was going to see Fleury in his nightmares because he just stoned him a couple of times. So yeah, it was definitely a fun weekend of hockey. For the Wild.
That might be the first time I've ever gotten through a game and said Kirill Kaprizov and Kevin Fiala did not register a shot, either of them, and we didn't need it because the GREEF line was just that's as dominant as that line has ever been.
Yeah, they were on that on X's second goal. I thought the funniest thing was when Greenway just completely shoved Nicklas Backstrom just through him. And Nick Backstrom's been in the league for a long time, and he just shoved him aside. And then Ek kind of went soccer style on his goal. He kind of kicked it to himself, and I don't know what Vanacek was doing out there tonight. He just looked off the entire game. His angles was letting up just big juicy rebounds left and right, and their big guns were extremely quiet. Ovi he didn't get the goal, but he helped produce on that lone goal by Garnet Hathaway. But their big guns were quiet. Didn't really hear John Carlson's name a whole lot, and Oshie didn't do much, and Tom Wilson was a ghost out there, and so you love to see that. And just a dominant team win, I thought. And Tyson Jost, continues to take advantage of the opportunity being on the second line there. So good for him.
Yeah, it's been interesting because not only has Jost looked good on the second line, Nick Bjugstad has looked right at home with that fourth line, and those guys continue to just wrecking ball people. It's like, I think I made the analogy. I don't know if I made it with you or somebody else earlier in the week. It's like you're moving a bunch of stuff in a U-Haul, and you have two just massive like grand pianos that you don't restrain in the back end, and so you're driving all over the place. They're sliding all over the place, and they are just running into things in the back of that U-Haul. And that's Delorier, that's Middleton, that's Greenway. And I think that is a big part as to why this team has so much success against Eastern Conference teams. Is, the East is built a lot on speed.
Yeah.
Western Conference teams have been bringing that muscle, and
it's the heavies, Calgary, St. Louis, Nashville. I mean, the list goes on and on. There are some big, strong teams. LA, we don't see them a whole lot, but Anaheim. Those are some big, big, rough teams that like to get after it for sure.
Yeah, it's battering rams, and I think that's why we're seeing this team have so much success. Like, they didn't lose in regulation to anybody in the Metropolitan Division, which is insane. But, all in all, a very successful weekend. And we did as well, just wanted to touch on this. Defensively, all the things that were working for this team so well at the beginning of the season, you throw in the likes of Jacob Middleton, who does all of those really well. And this D-core, like even with John Merrill sidelined, Alex Goligoski played great. And they got back to kind of committing to those things on defense, such as, anticipating where the puck's going to go, getting a stick into passing lanes, and just intercepting or at least deflecting a ton of passes. I bet you could count 4 or 5 only attempts that the Capitals had that were not deflected in some way or stolen away by the Wild. The whole game.
I thought Kulikov was great again tonight. He was fantastic yesterday. He was one of the best players on the ice. He made up for his penalty and then got the goal against Carolina. So we like to see that after he kind of had a tough game against Pittsburgh. Everybody's like, what is this guy doing out there in overtime? So he kind of had 2 really, really great bounce back games. And then I want Alex Goligoski, getting scratched 3 straight games and then throws that just amazing breakout pass to Greenway and right, and then Ecker gets it in 5-hole. But so guys that really were under pressure really performed well tonight. And what more can you say about Jacob Middleton too? He doesn't he doesn't put up points, but he does everything else like that you need, and he's going to be the perfect guy for the playoffs. He's tough. He blocks a ton of shots. I mean, yesterday, he kept getting hit in the hand. It was just like, get that guy all the ice packs. I tweeted out, but he's the perfect guy to play with Jared Spurgeon. And it was kind of funny. Everybody thought, hey, they're looking to add a depth defenseman, a third pairing. Well, Middleton's playing on the top pairing.
Right.
He's he showed that he could do that in San Jose when he was playing with Erik Karlsson and Brett Burns at times. And he's just the perfect stay-at-home defenseman and can let Jared Spurgeon be a little bit more offensive out there. And so it's I love that pairing. And then allows Matt Dumba to play with his best buddy and Jonas Brodin, and then the third pairing you can just kind of rotate based off need. But I think if the playoffs started today and if Merrill was healthy, I think Goligoski would still be sitting for sure.
Not that I like to rub it in, but the trade for Middleton was Capo Kakkonen and a 5th round pick.
Yes.
Capo's numbers I'm assuming how is it possible that he's already made 3 starts for the Sharks?
Yeah, they have nobody. Well, they have James Reimer, but he keeps getting hurt too.
Well, he is 0-2. He's played in 3 games. He's started 2 of them.
Yeah.
Goals goals against average is 5.16, and his save percentage is 880.
Yeah, horrible numbers. It was bad, really bad last night against Dallas. I mean, San Jose scored on their first shot of the game, and then he gave up 4. Just bam, 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 bam. It was unbelievable. They gave up a goal with 1 second left in the period to Jason Robertson. Everybody was like, why is Minnesota giving up Capo Kapanen? It's like, well, are you guys forgetting Jesper Wallstedt? And it's not like Marc-Andre Fleury's a skeleton. They can re-sign him and and bridge the gap there. But
and it seems like they're fully intent on doing that. So it'll work out. It has already. Both goalies since the Wild made the trade have a goals against average under 2 and a save percentage over 940. So.
And look at Jacob Milton. You're not going to get him unless you give up that goalie. And so that's a trade-off, that I think a lot of Wild fans would, take in a heartbeat. This is a guy that has really helped shore up the defense and, eat up a lot of minutes. You could tell some of the guys were getting tired or playing more minutes than should be. And so it was the perfect move by Billy G, who continues to make perfect move after perfect move.
Wheeling and dealing. Tell you what, we did see some histories. Kirill Kaprizov did it. Unfortunately, couldn't take the all-time single seasons points mark at home, but nonetheless, he did get it done. So we'll talk about that because there are a bunch of other records that are soon to be broken. So a little history watch as we continue today's episode of Locked on Wilds after this. April showers bring Built Bar flowers. The month of April is here, and if you are looking to accelerate your weight loss goals, to eat better and to look better, Built Bar is here to help. If you haven't tried Built Bar Puffs yet, you are missing out on one of Built Bar's best tasting bars. They are the first ever protein-infused marshmallow. They're fluffy, they're marshmallowy, they're not just a protein bar, they're a treat. And they're covered in 100% real chocolate. As with most Built Bars, Puffs contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Compare that to your average candy bar, which has right around 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs. So if you want to splash into Built Bar Mania, head to Built.com, use the promo code LOCKED15, and you'll get 15% off of your order. Again, use the promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. Continuing today's episode of Locked on Wild, again, thank you for making Locked on Wild your first listen every day. Month of March, again, a record breaker for Locked on Wild. So thank you, listeners, for continuing to raise the roof on the downloads. And once your first listen of the day is done, head over to the Locked on NHL podcast to get the lowdown on all of your favorite NHL teams from your favorite Locked on NHL insiders. Locked on NHL is available wherever you listen to podcasts. History made Kirill Kaprizov stands alone with the most points in a single season for the Minnesota Wild. 85 points in 67 games, which as of last check, haven't seen where he's at after the weekend's games, but I know he was in 6th place before the Capitals game. Obviously didn't register a point during the game, but still an incredible season and still right on track to become just such a rarity for Minnesota sports by becoming a 100-point scorer. Alex, does he get it? The Wild schedule is a little daunting the rest of the way, but does Kaprizov get to 100 points? Yes or no?
I think he does. The pace that he's at, it looks like he's going to get there. Hopefully, obviously getting on the power play helps a ton. So hopefully they can do that. Got a couple of big games this week, and so they're gonna going to have to get it done on special teams, and so I think that will help get him close to that 100-point mark. But he was just absolutely a beast on Friday. Just so much fun to watch. And how about him? On his goal, trying to go between the legs, and then then he goes around the corner, gets it short side in the rock star zone, and just him and Zuccarello. I found that picture of baby Zuc, and I was like, this guy's been the most important thing to Kirill's career, and thank you, Paul Fenton. One of the only things right that he did was getting Zuccarello here. He was off to a slow start and got hurt, but now he's just been lights out for this Wild team, and it's just so much fun to watch. He's so strong. Tonight, you'd think back to back he'd be tired, but he was just on his edges and just making play after play. It was impressive. No points tonight, but I thought his line was really good, and he just continues to just show off. It's incredible.
Yeah, and he's on a pace to break the all-time goals in a single season mark. Projected to get 47 this year. He's also projected to get 55 assists, which is hilarious because if you do the math there, 47 goals and 55 assists, they project him for 103 points. That math does not add up.
Well, people look at, and so you're right. He's still sixth in the stats for points. Look at the company that he's surrounded by. It's McDavid, Draisaitl, Huberdeau, Johnny Gaudreau, Austin Matthews, decent guy, just got his 50th goal this season. Same with Leon Draisaitl, just got his 50th tonight too. Just mind-boggling. I mean, those two, the two Edmonton guys, 1-2 again, in points, which is crazy. And then right after Austin Matthews at 5 is Kaprizov at 6. So I mean, you got former MVPs right there amongst him, and it's incredible what he's doing. And I think Zuccarello is pretty dang good, but Hartman's is not a McDavid or a Draisaitl. Right. And so what Kaprizov is doing and how he's elevating his line mates, that's I think is the most impressive thing, because Ryan Hartman has been known as a third line, kind of a grinder, and for him to be elevated to the top line and the season that he's having because of Kaprizov is incredible.
Yeah, and Kaprizov tied with Connor McDavid for goals at 39.
Not bad.
He's having a pretty good season himself. Yeah. And Zuccarello on pace to break the single season assists mark as well. Just shattering his previous high in terms of points. Going to be right around, I think at last check, going to be right around, and I'm pulling it up right now, 83 points for Zuccarello, and his career high before that was 69. So just
just elevating his teammates, playing level and style, and I think Zuccarello's shooting the puck a lot more than normal too, which is great to see. He's always been known as the setup guy, and so for him to get above that 20 goal mark is huge too. And now the team has 6 guys that have scored 20 or more. That's that is depth.
Yeah, that's the depth that Anson Carter was looking for. And now the GREEF line with Foligno and Eriksson Ek, you've got Foligno with 20 goals. You've got Eriksson Ek with 21. Oh, and then you've got Jordan Greenway, who is playing some of the best hockey in his entire career.
Right.
He's close to 10 goals himself. So this team they're getting scoring from everywhere, which I think has been a thing that sets this team apart from previous seasons, where you had maybe one line that could score. The rest of the lines played good defense, but then you're like, well, geez, if those guys don't score, how are we going to get this?
Right. It's it's something else. It's that grief line again. I know we touched on it, but they are the identity of this team. I brought it up so many times. When they're going, that's when the Wild are at their best, and hopefully they can ride this momentum into the playoffs. Because it's going to be a war. It's either going to be St. Louis or Nashville, and those are two teams that have historically always given the Wild the most trouble. It's because both teams like to kick the crap out of each other, out of who they're playing. They're big, they're strong, they're physical. Nashville's got a guy in Roman Josi who's right there for the Norris title, and they have a good goalie in Saros. And then St. Louis, just huge, big forwards, big defensemen. Husso's been great in net for them. Bennington, wild card, but come playoff time, he's usually pretty good. So to have that grief line go out there and just try to wear out teams. And you saw it today with Washington. Their big guys did absolutely nothing. So we want to see that momentum for that grief line for sure going in.
Yeah, the Capitals just were no match. Like they were just physically destroyed by that grief line. And you segued it perfectly, because to finish, we'll take a look at what's coming up, which is a matchup against both the Predators and the Blues, and the statistical anomaly that is the Los Angeles Kings. We got to talk about that
stat you threw out. Oh my God.
It's unbelievable. And so that's a heck of a tease for the final segment, because I have a stat that is going to
mind-blowing.
You're not going to be ready for it. So we'll discuss that, and we'll look at what's ahead for the week to come on today's episode of Locked On Wilds after this. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all of your betting needs and sports info. You can find all of the latest sports developments, including this week's Masters Championship odds. Will Tiger Woods play or not? Find out at betonline.net. Plus, you can also find the latest podcasts and reviews for all of the different sports leagues going on right now. BetOnline is your continued source for all of your sports wagering information needs, including live betting, esports, and scores. So head to their website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and the action. You can find all of it at BetOnline, where the game starts. Final segment of today's episode of Locked On Wild. And again, thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. Seth Topal joined by Alex Micheletti. And Alex, 3 games on the docket before we will chat again next. And it features the back half of this road trip with a game against Nashville on Tuesday, then Friday against St. Louis, and Sunday against the Los Angeles Kings. More on them in a second. But let's just talk about Nashville to start things. And, you segued it perfectly by talking about just the physicality that both Nashville and St. Louis play with. And, this is interesting for both of these teams, but especially I think for Nashville, is that this will be the first time that the Wild will face them with the new look lineup. They had the second game against the Predators right before the trade deadline. And so still a little smaller lineup. And so that should hopefully help stem the tide against a Predators team that just refuses to go away. I write them off every single time that they're talked about on this show. And yet here they are still vying for a wild card spot like the Predators we expect that they would be.
Yeah, the Predators had the strangest offseason because they traded away some of their long-term vets that had been there a while, and Ryan Ellis, and also getting rid of Victor Arvidsson, who went to LA and is having an amazing season with LA. And so just some strange moves, but they continue to hang in there. And they have one of the best players in the NHL in Roman Josi, who, the last time they played the Wild, he had an incredible game, 2 goals, right? So,
Yeah.
That's a guy that you just have to try to wear out and try to, finish all your checks on him as possible. I mean, he never seems to leave the ice, kind of like Cale Makar does in Colorado. But Saros is a goalie that you can get after. He's smaller, and so if you can pepper pucks at him, they'll be right in there. And like I said, or like you said, Jacob Middleton wasn't out there. Delorier wasn't out there. Tyson Jost, he's smaller, but he wasn't out there either. And so, it's gonna be fun to see the full lineup go. Hopefully Fleury, plays. I'd like to see him get the Nashville start, and then it seems like they're just going to continue to rotate and get Cam on Friday. But this is going to be huge. It's going to be in Nashville, and so I'm sure the crowd will be buzzing just with that city and everything. And so it'll be fun. They are very talented up front. Phil Forsberg has had an outstanding season, and so it's going to be fun to see the guys get after it.
We now have finally caught Nashville in terms of games played, and so with 68 games apiece, the Wild have 9 more points than the Predators do at this point in the season. They also have 252 goals compared to 224 for the Predators, and the Wild have given up 10 more. So things relatively even, but that's why the Capitals win and the Hurricanes win were so important, because as with the St. Louis Blues as well, both them and the Predators not playing as good recently.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at the St. Louis Blues, and I looked into this question a little bit with the mailbag episode on Saturday, who would you rather play in the first round? And I think the answer is the St. Louis Blues of the two teams. And St. Louis right now, they're Jekyll and hiding it too, because Jordan Binnington has been just such a disaster that he's the backup now. And Ville Husso just has turned into like the next coming of Patrick Waugh.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, you take a look at their 2 games this weekend. They play Edmonton, and Edmonton goes up 4-1 right away, and then 5-3, and then St. Louis comes all the way back 5-5, and then good luck when you play Edmonton in overtime. It's not fair. I mean, they stick Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid out there together, and then who cares who the third guy is out there? But those two together are just it's unstoppable to stop in a 3-on-3 situation. And then then they go into Calgary, and they beat Calgary. They make Jacob Markstrom look like he's a backup goaltender. I think they scored on their first shot of the game too, which is just wild. And Husso, he let in one on Johnny Gaudreau, but he shut down Lindholm, Kachuk, and Majipaji, and Rasmus Anderson. So it was interesting weekend for the Blues for sure.
Yeah, just looking at some of the Blues numbers too, they're much more of an evenly spread scoring team. They've certainly got the good players. They don't have anybody that's necessarily like leading by a bunch in scoring. So definitely dangerous. And as we saw over the last couple of seasons for the Minnesota Wilds, they seem to have the Wild's number. So maybe this can be the season that we've finally kind of flip it back in our favor.
Yeah, this time show Vladdy Tarasenko a little taste of his own medicine with our Russians out there, So it's always fun to see the Russians go against each other, because they like to one up each other. We saw it with Carolina, with Svechnikov and Kaprizov, and so and then you got to see Kaprizov play his idol and Ovechkin tonight for the first time ever, which was really cool. And so Yeah, that matchup against the Blues would be really fun in the playoffs for sure, and get a little revenge from previous playoff experiences against the Blues.
I should also mention too that the Minnesota Wild now are officially in second place in the Western Conference with 91 points. So congratulations to the Wild for that, because Calgary's lost 3 in a row. I saw a stat for the final team that the Wild will play before Monday, the Los Angeles Kings. It was courtesy of Jay Fresh on Twitter at JFreshHockey. Team goals scored above expected. Minnesota Wild leading the pack with plus 34.7. And so what that basically tells you is that in any given situation, the average teams will score X amount of goals. The Wild have been substantially better than that this season, with the number of players they've had that have taken advantage of opportunities. They've been well above what was expected for goals, and that has been something over the last couple of seasons that they've been able to do. So, fluky, maybe, probably not. However, the team that is dead last in that category is the Los Angeles Kings. The Los Angeles Kings are negative 42.2. So they have scored 42.2 fewer goals than expected this season. And the next closest team at 31 is roughly half of that, which is the Montreal Canadiens at negative 21.8. The thing, though, Los Angeles Kings are the second, I believe, the second place team in the Pacific at 86 points on the season.
It's nuts. It doesn't make any sense, Yeah, it does not make any sense. They're an interesting team for sure. They have one of the best two-way forwards in the NHL, Anze Kopitar. And they really top-heavy team. They have that top line of him, Kempe and Iafallo, the former UMD Bulldog, and they've been trying to, ever since have been trying to get a second line going. Victor Arvidsson has been very good for them. You got a guy and Trevor Moore, who's extremely fast. And then one of the pickups, I think, of the offseason was Philip Denault. He has really taken some pressure off Anze Kopitar, and so he's had a phenomenal season. But yeah, they're just a weird team to figure out. They played Seattle the other night, and Seattle kicked the crap out of them, and so. And Seattle's struggling against everybody. So it's just it's something else. They gave up 6 goals. So their goaltending has been kind of hit and miss. They're another team that has been rotating back and forth and quick and then Calvin Peterson. So it'll be interesting to see who they go with on Sunday.
Yeah, Peterson or Jonathan Quick, I should say, 9 overtime losses by himself. So it's a team that does enough to get it to overtime,
right,
or the shootout, but they just cannot. They don't have enough scoring to win the game.
Yeah. They needed to add another forward, and they didn't really accomplish that, which was interesting. They're missing Drew Doughty, which is a huge part of their offense, and especially on the power play. So it'll be interesting to see if they get him back for the playoffs or not. It's been radio silent on Doughty.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Obviously he is not regretting not being able to see Kirill Kaprizov on Sunday, but
no kidding,
overpaid, whatever that means. But yeah, it should be a fascinating week. And so that was your mind blowing stat of the week.
Crazy.
Is that the difference in goals between the Wild and the Kings, goals scored above expected, is 76.9 between the two teams, and they're separated by 5 points in the standings.
It goes to show you how much tougher the Central is compared to the Pacific too. It was the same thing with the Wild last year when they were grouped together with Anaheim and San Jose and that LA team and that god awful Arizona squad. So it's that team is tough to watch.
Yeah. Hey, congrats to Arizona as we close up today. Congrats to Arizona on making sure that Trevor Zegras doesn't have fun out on the ice.
Yeah, and Jay Beagle just going out there and trying to just pummel a superstar in Troy too.
Yeah.
What a joke.
We're not going to get too far into it because it makes my blood boil, but I think there's a reason that Arizona is one of the worst teams in the NHL, and I don't think it has anything to do with being outclassed by players out on the ice.
No, not at all.
That's all I got to say on that, and that is where we will leave things for today. So now that your first listen of the day is done, again, make sure you head to the Locked On NHL podcast to get all the latest on your favorite NHL teams from your favorite Locked On NHL insiders. Locked On NHL is free and available wherever you listen to podcasts, just like Locked On Wild. Subscribe, like, follow, all of the above. Follow us wherever you listen to podcasts, wherever you follow on social media, so that you can stay up to date with everything going on with the Minnesota Wild as they push towards the playoffs. Locked On Wild is keeping you as up to date as you can possibly be, with new episodes every Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.